last week I was in Miami, or just north of Miami there in Delray, doing a shoot. If you guys aren't aware, I do a lot of mentoring and have done for a very long time. So this was a mentoring session where a very nice guy over there that I've known for a while called Brian. I've done some online mentoring with him for a long time, and he asked me to go over there and do some one-to-one teaching with him. And I've done this a bunch over the years. Sometimes people come to me here in the UK, whether it be, I've got a guy from Dubai coming over, or got a guy from Switzerland, or I've gone up to Scotland, or all those sorts of places as well. So I do a lot of the one-to-one mentoring things, and it's definitely one of the perks of the job, right? Because A, you get to travel, and B, you get to kind of push your ideas and techniques into different ways of using them, right? So Brian asked me to come over there with the mindset of, how can we kind of shoot boudoir setups basically via the plane, carry on, or at worst check-in luggage. And you wanted to do that in different areas around US, traveling and that sort of stuff. So how could it be done? So I went over there with some setups. So we did a bunch of boudoir type setups over there, and I also did a bunch of beach shoots that I wanted to kind of play with. And one of the ideas I wanted to play with was using speedlight on the beach, kind of pre-dawn, and capturing the dark in the background, illuminating the model with the speedlight before the sun came up, right? So obviously the sunrise shoots are cool, but once that sun's up, it's very difficult to kind of compete with that. So my idea was to use some speedlights with that, and try and get some cool looks, which is what we kind of did. So just let me shift this dog a second. Oh. So the setup that I was using was a setup that I've kind of recommended before, right? So this is a right angle bracket that I have on the camera here, right? So it enables me to shoot with the speedlight vertically like this, and then I'm just using the X3 trigger on here that syncs to the camera here. Now for all of these shots, I was shooting TTL. And those of you know, I did my review on this. Was this the V100 or something speedlight last year? Really impressed with it. Yeah, specifically for its TTL capabilities, because it just never misses. Yeah, it just never misses. Yeah, it's crazy, absolutely crazy. The thing was flawless, absolutely flawless. Yeah, which is very good. And again, it's synced from here to there, so that's the reason. And the reason I'm using this vertical grip here is to kind of get cleaner lighting on the subject. So a lot of times people, when they're shooting with speedlights like this, they'll keep the speedlights mounted on the side or on the top even, right? So when they shoot vertically like this, I'm not showing my screen, my bad. So when they shoot vertically like this, when the speedlight is in the hot shoe here, right, when it's over on its side, you get these shadows across to the side. Now this seems like I'm exaggerating this for the sake of this article, but like it is crazy. If you're in close, now obviously if you're 30 feet away, you're not going to see it as much, but shooting like this gives you these nasty shadows. I saw a guy doing it earlier on, and it's so obvious, right? And it's just such a simple fix, just to use the right angle bracket. Boom! Immediately the lighting looks just immediately better, right? So I'm using that, and I'm using the TTL bracket on there. I'm using the TTL with the flash trigger on there, and it was flawless, right? It was flawless. Yeah, really good. So this is kind of having a look at some of these shots. So again, this is pre-dawn, right? So the sun hasn't come up, and I'll show you these have been color graded, but I did shoot some back of the camera shots as well, which you can see the actual raws from. So what's going on here is I've set the camera to be very, very cold, right? Blue in terms of Kelvin. So if we look at the original file here, I think we can probably see the Kelvin on here, can you? Maybe you can't. I thought you could. But the Kelvin of these ones is going to be very, very warm, right? Very, very cool, right? So that I'm setting the background to be bright blue, right? So you set your Kelvin on your camera to like as high as it'll go, which I think is like 10,000 or something like that, which makes the daylight behind bright blue. Now, when I'm then using a red gel here, which is powerful enough to overpower that blue color, so that the blue Kelvin really has almost no effect at all on the actual red on the model, as it were. So I just want to show you the raws that I posted the other day, because I added a little bit of green. So there you go. Yeah. So this is the raw. So you can see how bright blue that Kelvin is, right? Is like vivid blue. And all I've done in post with the color grading is just to add a little bit of green to the highlights. So there's no masking or anything like that. This is all purely done in camera with a red gel. And then I've just done a little bit of grading afterwards, just to kind of ease off on the kind of deep blue. Okay. So there's a couple of things as well with doing this, and a couple of settings that I found worked quite well, and others that maybe didn't, which we'll look at. This is what happens when you take the red gel off. So I've taken the red gel off. The camera is still bright blue, but now I'm using a CTO, which is a color temperature orange gel, on the speedlight, right? So the background is still blue. She's being flashed with the orange speedlight, but because the Kelvin is so cold, it's making her skin tones neutral again, right? And again, if we look at the raws that I posted, I think it's even more obvious. Yeah, boom, there you go, right? So like the Kelvin is bright blue, bright blue, and you can ease off on that if you wanted. Let's say I'm using a full CTO here, but if you wanted to go like maybe use a half CTO, so half color temperature orange gel on her, then you wouldn't need to push the blue Kelvin so high. You maybe only need to go to like 7,500, 8,000 Kelvin, right? So the blue would ease off a little bit. But again, like there's no masking here. All I've done is just added some green to the highlights. Yeah. Okay. So finally, there's one other thing I wanted to mention with these. This is beautiful with her sat down, absolutely gorgeous. Again, no masking. This is just, and you can see the red flash going into the water there. I absolutely adore these shots. Yeah, I think they turned out so well. And again, you can see the sun hasn't quite come up yet, but you can still see the daylight reflecting off the waves behind her. Very, very cool. So this is what happens when you just don't do anything at all. So you just do a onboard speedlight shot on the beach, and you don't do anything with the Kelvin, you don't do anything with gels on the speedlight. You're just using just a regular onboard flash, which is what I'm doing there, TTL onboard flash, and clean, right? But the background isn't as blue. Obviously, it's more normal in the background. If we skip over to these ones. Boom, there you go. So more of a normal color, right? So normal color. This is just your regular standard speedlight shot where you just using normal Kelvin, which is, I don't know, like I'll probably shoot about 5,000, something like that, right? Boom, job done. So you get a huge difference between just a normal shot and then the Kelvin being pushed, right? So it's not going to be for everybody, but it is worth playing with, right? And then lastly, the final shots that I had there was, I actually just did this right at the end because I wanted to show you guys the difference, was what happens if we use a CTB gel on the speedlight, which is a color temperature blue gel on the speedlight, turn the turn the Kelvin all the way down to make the image warm to compensate for the bright blue model here, right? I don't think we got Kelvin here anymore. We know we got color. Oh, we do have. Okay. So if we were trying to kind of neutralize the background here, you can see, like, you know, I mean, we probably can't even go enough. But if you were to leave the camera Kelvin set to normal, right, she's bright blue because she's being lit by a bright blue CTB gel on the speedlight, right? Now, what happens when you adjust that, you know, in camera, so that she's now normal, you end up with this very rich, deep orange background behind her. Again, you don't need to go as far as this. You could go, well, that's just way too much, Jake. You know, that's crazy. I would probably go for maybe half a CTB, right? And then you maybe go to like 3000 Kelvin as opposed to, you know, 1500 or 4000 Kelvin, so that you're not going all the way down, and you're getting more of a natural feel to the shot. Okay. Same here, right? So you're just popping her with that blue gel, and then, you know, that's kind of what it, you know, she would have looked something like that. You make the adjustments in camera to, you know, account for it, and then as a result of that, the background goes bright orange. Okay. I don't think I included any of them here, but yeah. Does it have blades? Which does what have blades, Alan? The spotlight adapter thing there on the Godox one. Yes, it does. Yeah. So you can make it into a slot if that's what you're asking. Yeah. Yeah. It had 4 blades. Yeah. So there's a couple of other things that I would mention with this speedlight shoot that I was kind of testing as I was shooting as well, and trying a couple of different ideas that is worth bearing in mind. You've obviously got the ability to adjust the compensation, right, of the speedlight. I don't know whether the keyboard camera is still there or not. Yeah, it is. Yeah. So you've got your TTL here, and then you can adjust the compensation on the speedlight itself to whether you have it like 3 stops brighter than what it thinks, or darker. So the biggest issue that you're running into here is the sun is coming up the whole time, so your background exposure is changing the whole time as well. Okay. So yeah, here I know it's pretty bright, but yeah, so you're adjusting the TTL brightness and darkness here. Okay. So I was like, you know, tweaking this a little bit if I was coming in super close or something like that, but you probably didn't need to do too much with it. Yeah. So that's one thing to think about, is the compensation. The other thing that I was interested in playing with is going to be the zoom here, right? So we got 28 there, all the way up to 105. And what this does is it spreads and tightens the flash, right? So it's one thing to play with and think about if you're testing this, because typically if you're going to be any closer than 10 meters, you'd really want it set to 28 mil to be super wide to kind of get everything you want. The one thing that I was kind of playing with that I really liked was having this pocket. Having this pocket of light on her, and that comes from having your speedlight set to a tighter zoom, right? And I was probably anything, I think I was probably 80 or 105 mil zoom on that. So it's giving me this tight pocket, and you can see it here, right, where it's kind of vignetting down the body. So something to think about whether you like it or don't like it. I kind of really like this pool of light, right? It really focuses you in on where you want to be here in the middle, which I thought was kind of cool. But playing with that, and here as well, right? You can really see it dropping off. And again, I'm not doing that in post. I'm not darkening out or masking or anything like that. That's just by using the zoom on the speedlight to give you this pocket, right? And a little bit wider here for this shot, right? So I've zoomed out a little bit on the speedlight. So I doubt I went down to 28mm, but you can see we're getting far much more light on her here. Yeah, and again, a lot of light here, and probably a little bit more here compared to what we were earlier as well. Yeah. So the other thing to think about is the aperture when you're shooting with these, and that seems weird to bring that up. But again, I was kind of playing with this style, this kind of stark, strong, harsh speedlight onboard camera flash look that I was kind of going for, is reminiscent of 90s kind of onboard flash and that sort of stuff. And I am seeing more and more of that look. What's interesting about this was shot at f8, right? And this, like, shooting at f8, all the other ones you've seen were like 2.8, and it makes a big difference. It makes a big difference. Yeah, this is just a JPEG, but yeah, these ones are shot at f8, and it gives you more of that kind of stark feel to it, which I was kind of into. Again, yeah. F8. Oh, this is that ghosting on the water droplets. Yeah. But yeah, shooting at f8, I'd never normally shoot f8. I wanted to test it because that's more reminiscent of that style of photography where you're shooting on these kind of smaller cameras which have an inherent aperture, like almost like the disposable cameras were all kind of f8, right? And it kind of gives you that vibe as well. So again, not saying it's the be all and end all, but I found shooting at f8 made a big difference to the final look. Yeah, and obviously I mentioned this before, but monitoring the darkness back here as well is going to be done with your ambient light, right? So you're setting your camera's ambient light, so you don't even have the flash on the camera at first. Take some shots, make sure the background is nice and dark. That's the way that I shoot it. Have it nice and dark, and then pop the flash on to give it that pop. I don't know what on earth that is. Weird. But yeah, I love this style a lot. I was really impressed. This young lady, young mother came down. She does a lot of yoga and that sort of stuff. So she was very fit, but we managed to get some very cool shots of her with, in my opinion, without too much effort. And you're kind of relying on this very kind of bold style because you're in quite close as well. Because I'm on a zoom lens here, probably 24 to 70. What am I at here? There you go, focal length 32, right? So on some of these, I'm really quite wide. 32, yeah. I'm really wide on all of these. Let's have a look at these ones. 50. Okay, so I actually took a 50mm prime with me. I wanted to use it, but I was already out in the sea at this point. I didn't want to go back because like there's a difference between it being practically dark to broad daylight is about 30 minutes. So I didn't want to waste any time by going back up the beach to switch the lens to a 50. But I think if I had to shoot fixed lens of a prime, I think it would be 50mm here for sure. Yeah. Yeah, shooting at 50 here. Yeah. Okay. So I think that's all I kind of wanted to mention on those. Yeah, keep the background dark, playing with those, playing with the adjust. Oh, lastly, the only other thing to think about is how harsh you want the flash to be. So again, on mine, I just had a bare flash like this, right? Now I did bring this little thing here to kind of diffuse it. And the guy, Brian, who I was shooting with, he had a big Magmod diffuser on. So that's something to think about. I personally preferred it without. I wanted to kind of lean into that stark, that kind of stark onboard flash look. So that's kind of why I ended up, going for it, like without. Yeah. Can I? Thank you. Yeah, I just think I preferred the harsher. I wanted to pick up some of the highlights as well on the skin. You kind of see it here. Yeah. So again, thinking about the zoom. Think about the how soft you want the actual speedlight itself to be. Think about the darkness behind the subject as well, and think about the zoom on the flash, which I already mentioned, and then you've got the exposure compensation with TTL as well. But very, very fast, very, very effective shots, and I love these gelled ones. Absolutely love these with the colors. Yeah, and like again, no mask or anything like that. Yes, they look different from the raw, but really all I've done is I've added a bunch of greens to the highlights. Didn't affect the reds. It just so I'm not like I masked out the model and then brought up greens in the background. No, I just added greens to the highlights overall, and it didn't even touch the red. Yeah, just to give it a little bit more depth to the color grade in the background rather than it just being that pure stark blue. Yeah, but yeah, cool setup. Very, very quick and easy to do. Very simple, and I could see that LED tube being used there as well. If I was hand holding that LED tube, as long as it wasn't too windy, I could see that thing blowing off. But yeah, the speedlight and TTL is just so good, so good. I actually shot some images on the GFX with it as well. Yeah. But any questions on that? I will put together a proper article on that as well, a Technique Tuesday in the coming weeks. So yeah, there'll be more detail there as well if you're interested.